Hi, I'm Al Lowe, and I'm listening to Adventure Game Hotspot.
Welcome back or welcome front if it's the first time joining us. I am Joshua and that's Jack, and
That's me.
we are Adventure Game Hotspot. And today we have Francisco Gonzalez. So happy to have him. How are you guys doing today?
Hey,
Hello.
It's good to have you. Can't wait to talk about Rosewater, Grundislav Games, and adventure games in general. Before we get into that, Jack, why don't you tell us about the week that was in Adventure Game Hotspot?
oh boy, a busy one. Oh, actually, we didn't do a podcast last week, so I got kind of 2 weeks worth of news piled up. I won't say them all, but we did a preview of a game called Plot of the Druid, which is currently in early access. And the reason I wanted to start with that is because we're introducing a new writer with that article called Nick Fuller. So welcome, Nick. Yay.
Yeah.
We did a roundup of the gazillion and one demos that are currently on the Steam Next Fest. I did a lengthy interview with the developer of Roots in the Sky, The Hand of Glory 2, and
Great
it
interview.
goes on and on and on. Reviews of Beyond the Edge of Asgard, Stray, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And more
Anyway,
people
yeah, tons going
can steal Netflix. Gotta get more pirates out there, right?
on. Yeah,
Speaking of pirates, we have a pirate background there. A little transition. So
that's
Francisco
right.
Gonzalez, Grundislav Games. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me on, first of all. And yeah, me, who am I? I'm a guy. I make adventure games. You may know my games. If you're really old, you might know the Ben Jordan games. Ben Jordan Paranormal Investigator was a little freeware series I started off with.
I
Back
don't.
in
I must
the
not be old enough.
early. Oh, that's true. Yeah. No,
No,
of
no, no,
course. Of course. You're yes. No.
no.
Anyway, I shouldn't have led with that. Sorry. I didn't mean to. First things first. Sure, great etiquette. Insult your host. Okay. Anyway, yeah, no. So I did. I started off tinkering around in Adventure Game Studio in about 2001. Made a freeware series called Ben Jordan Paranormal Investigator, which took me about 8 years to make, and then I took the plunge and made this my full-time job in 2013. I released a game called A Golden Wake in 2014, followed by Shadlight in 2016, and then Lamplight City in 2018. And I am currently working on Rosewater, which will definitely be out in 2023.
That was going to be my
Or
first question.
yeah, or else I'll just collapse into a puddle of something.
Yeah, guys, stay to the end because he's gonna actually tell us the release date at the end, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh man, yeah. So you really burst on the scene. It seems like a lot of people know you for Lamplight. Is that is was that accurate? Is that your
Um,
biggest?
I would say it's definitely probably the game that's done the best so
Mhm.
far. It's weird because I feel like I had a pretty big audience when I was doing the Ben Jordan
Mhm.
games, but one thing that I learned very quickly when I started my commercial career is that people have a very different set of expectations when you present the game to them for free to download and when you
Oh
ask
yeah.
them to pay for it. So I don't want to say like I don't feel like I lost my audience, but I also kind of feel like I don't know. I sort of had to start from scratch in a way.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I can't complain. I feel, I've had the fortune that every game I've done has done a little bit better than the last one, and I'm always out there hustling and trying to get people to know what I'm working on and what I'm doing, and keep growing the audience.
And you didn't take the safe path. I mean, since Ben Jordan, you've never done a sequel. And
Right.
every game you've done is so completely different than the last one. Yeah, like in terms of setting and the story and stuff like that. That like each one is its own cell, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah, yeah.
there's no yeah, oh, a new Francisco Gonzalez game. I know exactly what to expect. I mean, we sort of do gameplay wise and look
Yeah,
wise, but everything
yeah.
else different. So like
Yeah, I
you're
mean, I
yeah.
guess the closest thing is now with Rosewater. It's not a direct sequel to Lamplight City, but it's set in the same world, and it's got a couple of characters that are also returning characters. But like, you don't need to have played Lamplight City in order to
Mhm.
enjoy Rosewater. I mean, you'll get more references if you did. But yeah, that's probably the closest thing, and that's more just because I wanted to explore the sort of alternate history world that I created more than anything else. So yeah.
And you're one of the I guess the newfangled types of devs that are really out there using every bit of social media. You're in the marketing part. You're doing the marketing. You're putting your face out there, except for when we're actually doing our launch day show, in which you had to go, which you had to go faceless.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that's great. I think that's something that is drawn me towards your games, because you're not only are you selling your games and you're selling your game's personality, but you're selling your own personality. And I think you do a really great job at that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm happy to hear you say that, because a lot of the times I feel like I'm just screaming into the void.
Mhm.
And there's some engagement, but there's always the concern of like, is this reaching anybody or enough people? Like, we always I've always worked with a publisher, and both publishers I've worked with have actually used the same PR person, actually, who was on, well, you know who this person is. It's Emily Morganti.
Emily Morganti, yeah.
Yes.
Emily.
The what's the word I'm looking for? The
Incomparable?
invaluable, the wonderful, the incomparable Emily Morganti. And she always helps do the marketing push, but obviously she's very busy, so she can't, her time is focused on like launch time, right? So, but as an indie dev, yeah, of course, in the whole development process, you pretty much have to do it yourself if you want anyone to get any attention. And I made the mistake of putting all my eggs into the Twitter basket, and with the recent developments of Twitter, like I've noticed that it's getting a little better now, but there was definitely like a couple of months ago, there was this cliff of just engagement went out the window.
It was pretty rocky.
Yeah. So like I went over to Mastodon, and I tried, I've been trying to build a following on Mastodon, and I don't do TikTok because I'm too old and I don't understand how to dance on TikTok. But I know that some other
That's not true. I saw
well,
yesterday.
that's Instagram, and that's a personal thing. If you're talking about my cat, swinging my cat around. But yeah, so yeah, it's like you got to do the marketing hustle, but it's and yeah, so like basically the thing that I find that's the easiest for me is to do the weekly live streams, which is just an excuse for me to do work but also have people to talk to, because it's very lonely just sitting here being like, well, I'm drawing a background. So yeah, and people seem to enjoy the insight into the behind the scenes thing. Like I had a lot of fun putting together the behind the scenes videos for like the voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm happy to hear you say that, Joshua, that like, you're enjoying and you feel like you're part of the dev process, because that's part of the appeal of being an indie dev.
I think that's, part of why we have such strong attachments to like the days of Sierra and stuff, was this sense of attachment to the developers. And a lot of that kind of got lost in the intervening years. And, developers were just sort of game makers that we didn't really know. So, it's nice to be able to go back to putting faces to names and, getting a feel for, the people behind the products that we play. So yeah, it's really important.
And along that train of thought, I feel like you've done a wonderful job in pushing Rosewater, but not to the point to where we know everything about it before everything comes out. In fact, like I started thinking, like I've seen most of your streams, your voice. So I see the things on demand, and that when you put them out there, I seen your trailers and stuff. I have not played the demo because I don't want to play the demo until I play the game.
That's fair.
But and it's like I'm so excited for it, but you've done the perfect amount to where what's going on? Tell us a little bit about the game. Like,
yeah, not the perfect amount, because we're going to ask for more.
Yeah, yeah. Give us a little something to taste on.
Yeah, that's always tough too, because it's like I always have this concern that I'm going to reveal too much, but then at the same time, I'm like, when I sit down and think about it, I'm like, I actually kind of haven't really said much at all about what this game is about, right? So the basic premise is that you play as a former boxer turned writer named Harley Legere, who comes to the small town of Rosewater. And she's come to town because she's got a prospective job offer from the local newspaper to be a writer. And so she gets
This is the
very
place.
early on in the game, and like in the course of the demo, she gets assigned to write a puff piece about this guy who's like a legend of the West who's doing his Wild West show in town. And so, depending on how you get into the theater to see the show, because one of the things about Rosewater is that several puzzles have multiple solutions, a la Fate of Atlantis.
Nice.
Yeah, you then get recruited by him and his assistant to go in search of this missing fortune. And so you get recruited and you go off on this journey and you meet a couple of other companions and you form this little posse and you go out across the frontier. And the second act is the journey across the frontier, and the third act is the finding of the treasure. So, well,
Spoiler alert! Oh,
I mean,
man.
I mean, the process of finding the treasure. So, yeah, it's basically a treasure hunt story, but also the main focus is the relationship with the companions, because the thing I noticed as far as like being a developer, when you have or as a writer of these games, when you have you know, a cast of multiple characters, you as the writer always love all your characters for the most part, and you want everybody to love them. But more often than not, there's always like one character everybody loves and one character everybody hates, or if you're really unlucky, everyone's indifferent to them. So I realized that to try and push you have to love all of these companions on everybody was asking a lot. So basically you can choose who you want to be nice to and who you don't want to be nice to, but your relationship levels with your companions affects the course of the story. So like in Act 2, it's pretty much like an A to B thing, but along the way there's like little storylets, like something like, let's say the Banner Saga or something like that, where it's like you're going along and then little vignette happens or whatever. And so each companion has two possible excursions. So like little, I guess if we're talking in terms of like games that are comparable, like, you know how like in Fallout or Fallout New Vegas or stuff, you have like quest chains that are specific to the companions and like developing their stories and things like that. It's that same idea, but then each companion has one for a high relationship, one for a low relationship. So when you play through, you'll only get one of them. So it adds to the replayability. Like if you want to be a jerk to companion A in one playthrough and then you want to be nice to them and see how it affects the story, you can do that again. You can play again if you have a lot of time, which I know a lot of people don't. But the point is, it's tailored to your experience. And yeah, so that's also why it's taken me almost 4.5 years to get out, because there's a lot of content.
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say. I can see why the date kind of slides. That's got to add a phenomenal amount of work. Now, like, I don't recall, maybe this is part of what you don't want to reveal, but I don't recall hearing anything about the companions themselves yet. Or is there anything you can tease about?
Sure. I did a little, I did a little guerrilla marketing, just sort of a little bio of each of the companion characters. Yeah, but I can give you a quick rundown. So the first two you meet are Gentleman Jake Ackerman, who's the Wild West guy, and he's sort of like the big boasty pew pew bravado hey, I'm the Old West hero kind of guy. He's like, I'll talk my way out of everything. He's the face of the group if you're an RPG person. And then his assistant Danny Luo, who's his sort of like long-suffering assistant, who's very timid but is also a really great sharpshooter. And then you meet Filomeno Marquez, also known as Phil Marquez, who's like the exiled new Spanish revolutionary who's like the demolitions expert, and he's trying to get some funds to fund his revolution, come out of exile. Then there's Nadine Redbird, who's a half Native American doctor, or healer actually. So she's the healer of the group, and she is sort of trying to figure out where she comes from, because she doesn't know who her people are, and she was raised by like the town doctor. So she comes along because she kind of wants to get out and see the world, because she's very sheltered. And then there's Lola Johnson, who is the no guff tracker owner of the wagon who drives them, and she's not interested in making friends. She's just like, you guys, you're my passengers. I'm taking you along, whatever. Don't talk to me, but you can talk to her, and you can get her to warm up to you as well. So yeah, that's your little posse. I think I got them all. I'm looking over at the poster over there to make sure I got them all.
Yeah, I was expecting 5. I was sure that I read 5 companions somewhere. I lost count at some point. I'm sure that's more than 5.
Jake, Danny, Phil, Nadine, and Lola. That's 5.
Oh, okay.
So we have a choose your own adventure style going on a little bit. And not that it has RPG elements, but I've noticed that a lot of adventure games, especially modern adventure games, have a lot of almost RPG style elements being implemented into them. Is that something that you are trying to do, or is it just a natural way for you to build?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not like a huge RPG fan myself. I've never played any like of the BioWare RPGs or anything like that. Like I mentioned, I've played Fallout New Vegas, and I like and Fallout 3 and 4 and all that stuff. And I like the companion thing. But I mean, I just figured, for an Old West setting, I thought it would be more interesting to do that companion thing, right? Like just have the posse. That's one of the tropes of the Old West genre. You have the Magnificent Seven. Actually, originally my joke was going to be that it was going to be 7 of them, but then it was like, that's not a lucky number. Let's have 6 people or something. But then I pared it down. It actually is 6 people. The whole posse is 6 people. Yeah, so I don't know. I felt it was more interesting to focus on the relationships in this, not necessarily to make it more RPG like, but just to make it different, I guess.
Well, I love implementing a specific role, and having a relationship with each characters. And that was something that I think like really drove me back into gaming back in, gosh, what is it? Knights of the Old Republic, where I just absolutely adored how every single character had a little story going to it. And it really made me come back into gaming because it wasn't just me out there. It wasn't just an arbitrary companion that's out there listening to what I have to say. You're learning back and forth.
I think most people have sort of the wrong impression that RPGs are all about combat or whatever. But I mean, really, you think about what the word is, it's role-playing game. And like role-playing games and adventure games are pretty much kissing cousins anyway, except for the combat. So I think
that was gross, man.
Incorporating more actual role-playing into an adventure story is like the next sort of logical step for
I mean,
a more mature.
Did it pretty well, I thought.
But now I gotta ask, while we're on the topic of combat, is there any shooting of any kind? And this is the Wild West, more or less, right?
Yes, there is shooting. There is some shooting. There are 2 shooting, we'll call them mini games. But they are both. Oops, that's my stop working alarm. I never heed the stop working.
This is
alarm.
work. No,
not this.
You love what you do, you're never working, right?
Exactly. It's more, anyway. So there's two shooting bits, but you can either try your luck and shoot, or you can solve the obstacle another way. Because
you can role play.
Exactly. If you're not good at action events, you can do it another way. Yeah.
Smart. So. You hear that, guys? Rosewater is an adventure role-playing action game. Let's go. We're throwing the genres like out of the window.
Let's do it.
It is a total hybrid.
I'll hire some actors and we'll do a Mad Dog. Actually, I've wanted to do a Mad Dog McCree style FMV.
Oh man,
Rosewater.
You're going back now. You're going back. Oh, that's funny you mentioned. I was just working on like a homage to old '90s DOS games, and I just did a little Mad Dog McCree thing. So
I'll tell you a real quick story.
Sure.
When I a few years ago, 2017 or so. Usually when I was going to GDC, my partner and she and I would do a little like pre-GDC thing. Like we would go someplace before, and we went to go visit her aunt and uncle in Yerington, Nevada, which is like an hour and a half southwest of Reno. Nothing out there, but it's near Virginia City, which is like super old west tourist trappy, like in the mountains, beautiful town. And she was like, they have an arcade there, and they have Mad Dog McCree. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to Virginia City and I'm going to play Mad Dog McCree. And it had closed and there was no Mad Dog McCree. And I was very sad. But I still got to experience Virginia City, which was nice. So
no Mad Dog McCree, man. The only game that was better, what was that LucasArts shooter game?
Oh,
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
I never played that one, and funnily enough, someone sent me a cutscene, and the whole like inciting incident where like the main character leaves his ranch behind, and then all the bad guys come and burn it down is because his wife asks him to go get her Rosewater. And I was like,
oh, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about you and your fandom. We've talked Mad Dog McCree. We've talked some other things here. So give us a few of your favorite adventure games now and coming up when you were younger.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, it's always hard when people ask like, what's your favorite adventure game? But I've narrowed it down to top 5, not in any particular order. Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers, Quest for Glory, Shadows of Darkness, Conquest of the Longbow, Day of the Tentacle, and Curse of Monkey Island.
Jack, it's Sierra versus LucasArts.
He pivoted right at the end there. I was sensing a real theme there at the beginning, but then it did a 180.
Yeah. No, I have to throw some LucasArts love in there as well.
Hard to go wrong with any of those. All of the ones that you mentioned are in my top 10 of all time, except for Conquest of the Longbow, which is in my top 25.
Okay.
So.
All right. Yeah, I feel like that's a severely underrated game. The one major flaw obviously is that it's copy protection. The game, there's entirely too many puzzles that rely on the copy protection, but you learn about gems.
You learn a lot of Sierra's copy protection. Learned a lot about life in general.
Yeah. Well, Christy Marks was very much like she wanted to teach you about like druid trees and gems and stuff. So I appreciate that. It's
the
not
healing
like
powers of gems.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like find the third word in the second paragraph of the 4th page. It's like identify the U and do it on your hand. And like,
or like Leisure Suit Larry. What was Ronald Reagan's second movie that he was in? Like, no man would know that, whether they're 25 or 40. Come on.
Yeah.
Now, what about non-adventure games? Let's do, or let's say genre bending games.
Sure.
One in particular I'm thinking of that may have had a little bit of influence in designing Rosewater, but I'll leave the question open for now.
Were you gonna say Red Dead Redemption?
I was not.
Okay.
A different game that you mentioned recently on Discord.
Yes. Uncharted 4.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like my dirty little secret, and I don't think it's a dirty little secret. I think it's pretty common amongst indie adventure game developers, at least all the ones I know, is that I don't actually really play adventure games anymore.
Yeah, I understand.
And it's not because I don't like them or I think they're bad or anything. It's just I don't want to play what I've been designing all day, you know?
Totally.
So I'll make an exception every now and then. Like I loved the excavation of Hobbs Barrow. That's like been one of my favorite indie adventure games of recent release. But yeah, like usually I do all my gaming on the PlayStation 4, and I tend to gravitate more towards like action adventure, like third person, like your Uncharted's, your Tomb Raiders, your Assassin's Creeds, or like I'm currently playing
you're talking
War Ragnarok. Yeah. So that's my genre like of choice when I play on PS4. But yeah, I love the Uncharted games. I loved Uncharted 4, obviously, and as I mentioned on Discord, like when I was playing it, I think at that point I was already pretty close to the end of Lamplight City, because that game came out in what, 2016?
2017. I think it was.
Yeah. So that was like right around. I was pretty well into production of Lamplight City and already thinking about what I was going to do next. And so playing it, I was like, I love this whole like globe trotting adventure, Indiana Jones, like, find the clues and go on the next treasure hunt thing. So I was like,
actual adventures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I was like, that'd be fun to adapt into an adventure game, like make an actual adventure game, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's when I started brainstorming the ideas for what I wanted Rosewater to be. And in the end, I settled for a treasure hunt, but it's not like follow the clues to this thing. You know what I always just the trope that always just gets me about those games, and Uncharted does this a lot too. But I guess it's, you have to do it. It's like they're always followed by like the bad guy, right? And then they always have to go through, like, they find the hidden temple and they go through all of this like really hard like hidden passages and like solve all these puzzles. And then as soon as they find the thing, oh, the bad guy's there. It's like,
yep.
Or
You
they
did all the hard work
like,
for him.
right, exactly. It's like then they always show up, and it's like, come on.
That's like ever since Indiana Jones. Like how frustrating everything in Indiana Jones. He did all the heavy lifting, and
Belloc.
Yeah,
exactly.
Belloc.
Yeah. All right, so I always ask this question, but I think it's so much fun. So the main protagonist, or the protagonist in Rosewater, which Hollywood actor would you cast to play?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a great question.
Oh.
Wow. Oh.
First thing that comes to your mind.
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is I would cast her voice actor, Maya Murphy, because Maya already kind of looks like Harley. All she needs to do is put on like the wig. And
I was wondering if maybe you patterned it off of her. Like,
no, I didn't really. I mean, I met her a few years ago, and I had always kind of in the back of my mind had her in mind for the role because I liked her voice and I thought she could do it. But yeah, no, in designing the character, I didn't really pattern her on her. It just sort of worked out that way, weirdly enough. So yeah, but if it had to be a Hollywood well-known person, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson. That's the safe answer, right?
That's the safe answer, yeah.
Well, you can never go wrong there. Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
Actually, I have someone in mind. I did not know this question was going to be asked, so this just leapt to mind, and I had literally just finished playing a little bit of the demo before this meeting, and I didn't know about the Xboxer thing, so I think when you said that, it twigged something. I'm thinking about Gina Carano.
Oh, is she
former MMA fighter who's
right?
I can't even.
She went to Star Wars universe, right? Yeah,
she was, yes,
Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I could totally see that. She was in another movie that I saw that was really good. Like right when she left the MMA world. Cool.
Yeah. Well, you kind of maybe answered this already, but I'm like, when you do play an adventure game, are you able to play it as just a fan, or do you play it as a developer? Because I know for me, it's hard to turn reviewer brain off or editor brain off and just play for fun, and that's maybe one of the reasons why you tend to go to other genres. I do too. Like when I want a break.
Yeah. It's very hard. I try my best to do that, but it always makes me think of when I was in high school and I couldn't read books for fun because it was like you're in English class and it's like you have to analyze all the subtext and all this stuff, and I couldn't read books without being like, oh my god, this is. So
it's wrecking them.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. But I try and be as non-critical as possible as I can when I play the adventure games. I also played Return to Monkey Island. Obviously, that was another big adventure game I played last year.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it.
Was it I like it, or did you really like it?
I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite of the series, but I liked what they did. I thought it was clever how they handled the ending of Monkey Island 2, and I'll confess that I liked Thimbleweed Park. I absolutely hated the ending. I didn't dislike the ending of Return to Monkey Island as much as I hated the ending of Thimbleweed Park, but I also was like, I'll take it.
Maybe it's because you were preconditioned. You knew it was coming. Like you had to by this point.
Maybe. Yeah, at that point I was like, fool me once, Ron Gilbert. Shame on you. Fool me 37 times. That's
He's
just
still
Ron
trying.
Gilbert. He's still trying. Yeah.
Now you mentioned books, so you were in lit.
I gave you a little segue there.
Oh, perfect. Well, I think let's jump into that. We always end our show with a top 5, and today is going to be a top 5 favorite books of all time. And I I'm very passionate about my books, and so like I'm sure I'll have quite a bit of opinions. But you are the guest, so we're gonna let you go first. Doesn't have to be in order. You can just throw 5 of them out there, one at a time.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, the whole having to like analyze books in school kind of put me off reading for a really long time. Actually, what really put me off reading for a really long time was I had a teacher, and my English teacher in 8th grade was obsessed with War and Peace, and she made us read War and Peace in 8th grade.
Wow.
You shouldn't read War and Peace in 8th grade. That's
no,
or ever.
No.
Or well, no, you should. It's a good book, but it's not something an 8th grader can appreciate.
No, it's not 8th grade. Yeah.
No. So I will confess that my literary cultural knowledge is not what it should be. Although I have recently joined a book club and we've been reading a lot of classic literature. We just finished reading Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
Which I was fine. But I will say that the top 5 books that I have ever read, in no particular order. Let's go.
Let's go around the room. So say one, then Jack will go, and we'll go around.
This is a book that I liked, and then I read it again, and I was like, "Oh, this kid! I hate this kid," but I still think it has value. Catcher in the Rye. Okay.
Yeah.
I, like every other adolescent boy, read that and was like, "This is me," and then I read it again a few years later, and I was like, "This kid's a whiny brat. Get over yourself, kid." But it's still a good book.
My friend and I had this very same conversation about it, almost verbatim. That's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that 2 reaction. Like, this is me, and then no, he's a whiny little brat without making the connection.
Yeah, well.
Oh, wait a minute. You mean I was a whiny little brat?
Oh, sure.
Nobody told me. I didn't think I was. I thought I was cool. But okay, I'm up next. Okay, this is kind of low-hanging fruit, but if I don't say it, I know someone will. I got to go with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I mean, just an amazing trilogy of books. Read them several times and just adore them all. Although I gotta admit, every time I hit a 4-page song, I just flip. But everything else is amazing.
Can't go wrong with Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna say Count of Monte Cristo. It's got everything you want: piracy, revenge. It's good to go. Treasure.
Nice. I'm gonna say, as far as fantasy, I enjoyed the His Dark Materials trilogy. I read that when that was relatively new, and I liked the recent HBO adaptation. That's a fun series.
And I did not know.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a book series. Cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They came out in the late 90s to like mid 2000s.
Yeah, gotcha.
And there's actually a sequel trilogy that's happening now, which I also want to read. So, yeah.
I started out liking that series, although as the books went on, it kind of lost me a little bit. I thought it just jumped the tracks a little bit too much, and I sort of lost interest. But I did enjoy the recent series. It's hard to pick one, but I'm going to sort of say the whole Tom Clancy set of books. If I have to pick a favorite, I think I'd go The Sum of All Fears, which don't judge it on the movie because it was a horrible, horrible, horrible movie. Whereas The Hunt for Red October is one of the best movies ever made. But the book is really awesome, really, really dense. But if you work through, and again, like I'll do 4 pages of flipping through technical specs on nuclear warheads and stuff like that just to get to the good parts. But the good parts are so good.
I have never read a Tom Clancy book ever, and I adore like that whole style. There's just so many others that I've gotten caught up, especially as I got older. But I'm gonna go with speaking of a guy who wrote some of the Tom Clancy books, Mark Greaney.
Oh yeah,
the Gray Man series is wonderful. It's action. It's incredible series. I think they end up making a movie about it with Mark.
That's right.
Ryan
Gosling.
And, it was nothing to do with the book, but I was disappointed in that.
Oh, it wasn't.
The books, yeah.
Actually, yeah. Now I think about it, I'm remembering long forgotten books that we read in book club.
Mhm.
And I realized that, yeah, I actually have really gotten into the Dune series as well.
Oh.
Like, I really liked the first, like, so it was funny because I got into Dune over the course of a weekend a couple of weeks ago, or years ago, sorry, a
Mhm.
couple of years ago. What is time? Where some friends and I went to a cabin in Vermont to get away from the city, and my friend was like, "Oh man, I got this great board game, Dune Imperium." And so we played it, and I was like, "I've heard of Dune. I've never seen the Lynch movie, and I know that there's this new one coming out. I've never read the book. Tell me about it." And he told me about it, and I was like, "This sounds amazing." So then I read Dune, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." And then I read Dune Messiah, and I was like, "Oh, this is okay." And then I started and then I started reading Children of Dune, and I was like, I'll come back to this because I really want to get to God Emperor of Dune. But no, I really like Dune, the first book. And yeah, I'm curious to keep going, at least, and stop at the Frank Herbert authored ones, because I hear the other ones are not great.
That sounds like the perfect getaway. Board games, books, and just
Yeah, well, and then
out.
actually, well, we also watched the Lynch version, and then we watched the documentary about Hodorowski's Dune. So that was like a Dune weekend. It was very nerdy, but it was
Sweet.
also very enjoyable.
I don't know if either of you guys have read this, but Francisco, it might appeal to you. It's Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz.
Oh no, I've never read
Yeah,
anything
he's a young man who can see and speak with ghosts. Well, he speaks to ghosts because his ghosts can't talk, but it's just really, really clever. It's just kind of a dry wit and just like an offbeat sensibility that really stands out from the norm. And I really enjoyed it. He's done, like, there's at least 6 or 7 books by now, I think. But again, a kind of a case of diminishing returns with each successive book, but the first one just had me hooked and I loved it. So
That's the thing with books. They're really hard to follow up, especially a great first one. Well, I guess that's the same with anything. Adventure game fans will probably love this, but I have no mouth and I must scream.
Oh yes.
That's got everything in it.
Are we at number 5?
I think we're at number 5.
Oh, is it?
No, yeah, that was 4.
Oh yeah, okay,
That was 4?
sure.
Okay, so I'm at number 5. All right, well then I will say.
Oh no, that was no. I'm sorry. I should just stop at math because apparently I can't count today.
I don't remember what I said.
You're right. This is number 4.
This is number 4. Okay. Well, then, this was a book that I also had to read in school and didn't appreciate when I read, but then when I read it again, I actually really liked it. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's very much like a gothic, sort of just mystery kind of thing, and it's one of those books that when you read it, suddenly you start seeing references to it everywhere, because it's one of those things where, like, people make sly references to it, but you don't realize it until you read it. But there's actually an old Hitchcock adaptation from like 1940 with Laurence Olivier. That's actually pretty good adaptation. But yeah, it's really good. It's a good mystery. It does dwell a little bit too much on descriptions of garden plants, but if you can get past that, it's actually a really, really good book.
Flip.
Yeah. And anytime anyone's like, "Oh, you're not as good as the other Mrs. De Winter," then you're like, "Oh, I know what you're talking about."
Okay, my 4th is another series. I don't know. I gravitate towards series. I don't know why, but I guess because once I get hooked on a book, I am a completist, so I got to read everything. But it's Artemis Fowl by Owen Colfer. Again, just a really quirky, fun sense of humor about a boy genius who has he's kind of a criminal mastermind, but gets in league with the world of fairies and stuff like that. So just really, really imaginative. And again, they made it into a movie. Don't base the books on the movie. No is awful.
And I am going to go with Lee Child. Most people would say The Killing Floor for Jack Reacher, but I'm going to go with Persuader. That's his 4th book, and it was I don't use the word masterpiece very often, but it was a masterpiece.
Wow.
It just kicks ass. And he's such an incredible wordsmith too. For a hulking, ass-kicking guy to be able to so quick-witted, I just love it. I love it, man.
Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. You guys go ahead, and I'll finish with my fifth. I have to
Okay.
really think about.
No,
this.
too soon. I was going to use this time. No.
I'll go next.
No. I
Okay,
can go
ahead.
Okay, I'll again go to the sort of fantasy world of C.S. Lewis and the Narnia series.
Wow.
This is like when I was a kid, I just
Sure.
absolutely devoured those and loved them. Still love them. Enjoyed the movie. Well, kind of enjoyed the movies. At least they aren't total disasters like some of the others on my list.
Did you ever play Hugo's House of Horrors?
I dabbled, but I have no memory of it really.
So there's what the final puzzle is. There's in the first one is there's this old man that's guarding. You have to like go across the lake, and the only way you can get out of the boat is if you answer this old man's trivia questions, and it's all outside knowledge. So one of the questions is, where did Aslan live? Hint, not in a wardrobe. And at that time, when I was a kid, I hadn't read the books. I had only seen the BBC adaptations. So I had heard them say Narnia with British accents. So I thought it was Nanya. So I was like, I kept typing like Nonya, and it was like, I don't know what that means. So I had to go to the library and look in the card catalog. Remember those, kids?
Oh man,
I don't remember those.
I heard about that in Monkey Island too.
Much too young to remember those.
So I had to go to the library and see how it was spelled in the card catalog. So
that's dedication. Okay, yeah. I admire that. Yeah.
Anyway, go on,
Jack.
Well, that was mine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you said that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he said that.
Oh, Francisco, you're next. Series. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot about
fine. Let's go with I'll say The Shining by Stephen King.
Oh, nice.
Which obviously I've seen the movie. I feel like all the books have been adapted to movies, and the book is pretty good. I understand why Stephen King was not a fan of the Kubrick movie, and I remember seeing the miniseries that they did in like the 90s that was a little bit more faithful. But I'm glad that they cut out the living topiaries, because that's probably the silliest part of that book. You just can't take living topiaries seriously as a horror threat.
It's pretty hard, yeah.
I still don't understand it. I don't understand like were they ghosts? Like, was he crazy? I don't get it. Like, I still don't.
That is the correct answer. I don't understand is the correct answer.
I really liked the idea of just like the idea of the place itself being the evil entity. That's cool. Yeah. So, all right, those are mine.
Well, I'll finish it up by saying Louis L'Amour book, Fair Blows the Wind. It's the only non-Western that he wrote that was Seabear. It was a pirate setting. Again, revenge, sword play, pirating. He goes and he trains with like the greatest swordsman in the world to take revenge on this master swordsman who killed his father. Oh, man, I've read it a dozen times. Every one of my friends, I make them read the book so they have an understanding of my childhood. Like, this is what I loved as a kid. I want you to get it. That's what we do. And so, yeah, Fair Blows. That was fun. That was fun. A lot of fun. Cisco, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great time. Absolutely. Jack, what do we got going on what do we got going on at AGH this week? And then we'll say goodbye to everybody.
Well, I mean, next week's still a bit of a toss-up. We got tons of reviews in the works, but first up is going to be our review of Burnhouse Lane, the next horror story by Rem Michalski. So if anybody's played The Cat Lady or Downfall, you'll know that he's a creep meister. You know what I mean? Not a creep meister. It will give you the chills, let me tell you.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's what we got in AGH. I'm sure we have some more coming up this week. Francisco, once again, I guess I'll finish say goodbye. Tell everybody where we can find you. Did we lose you?
Yeah, you just cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying, tell everybody where we could find you.
Oh, I just got the message. Your internet connection is unstable. Where can you find me? You can find me on Twitter. I am at Grundislav Games. That's GRUNDISLAVGAMES. I'm also that on Mastodon. You can find my games on Steam and on GOG.com. You can find the Ben Jordan games on itch.io. I had a website, but it's been down for a long time, so don't go there. And I think that's it. That's yeah. You can subscribe to my newsletter. I haven't sent out a newsletter in a while, but if you go to tinyletter.com/Grundislav, you can sign up for my newsletter. And you can also catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Grundislav every Wednesday at 1 p.m. for Wild West Wednesday, where I do a live stream of the development of Rosewater. Sometimes I do Frontier Friday, but I haven't done one of those in a while.
That's just very zealous when you want to throw a couple in there.
That's
yeah.
right.
And you are very entertaining. Whenever you do your streams, gotta love them. I'm sure we could find Jack over at Adventure Game Hotspot where he lives.
I think I do live there. Yeah, I got my pillow all set up.
And you can find this podcast over at AdventureGameHotspot.com as well, and over at our YouTube channel, our new YouTube channel, Adventure Game Hotspot, and also anywhere where you consume your podcasts. So for Jack, for Francisco, I am Joshua. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody.
So long.
Bye.
Rosewater.